Hello and welcome to this lecture. We are going to continue with user forms, and we're going to use them to build a survey graphical user interface. The user interface for a survey you might see like on this website have links. The first 2-3 pages of this document show us links to some websites that have some survey. So here's a science survey. And you say, so this is kind of the splash page that tells you what's going on with the survey. Has some graphics. Begin the quiz, and the survey or the quiz has a question with the text for the question. This picture shows an object in space that has an icy core with a tail of gas and dust that extends millions of miles. And then there's a picture, so there's a text, a picture, and then 4 answers here. A star, a comet, an asteroid, or a moon, and you make a guess and move on. So it's not a star, it's not the moon, it's either a comet or an asteroid. It's just depending on the definition between the comet and asteroid. I think it's a comet. I say next question. And this quiz doesn't give me feedback until I'm done. Other ways of doing the quiz is to give you feedback immediately on the answer, or however we go through it. So here's another URL that I provided that has a sciencey survey on it. This one again has 9 questions, but it has text. It doesn't have a picture, and it has again 4 answers. So the point of these, and let me give one more, and this one does give feedback. Let me go back here. It does give feedback. I'm sorry. So I don't know what it is. I'll say smaller. And that was the wrong answer. So this one gives me the feedback. After I make a guess, it tells me the right answer and or the wrong answer. Right. If I had guessed the right answer, it would have just given me the right answer feedback. If I'd guessed the wrong answer, it tells me the wrong answer and shows me the right answer. Right. So there's ways of doing this feedback. Here's one more example. I don't have the URL for it, but here's a text and a picture and 4 answers. And if you guess right, it tells you, and if you guess wrong, it tells you. Right. So I'm showing you this because that's what you're going to build. You're going to create a graphical user interface that's going to kind of do this stuff. And you'll realize how much power you have with it. Now you'll see that there's not a lot of material here to read about. It's more kind of doing an action. So let's just do the homework together. And I think that, again, it's easier to do this audio video show and tell than it is to just write it and have to read it and miss some things. There's a lot of things that are easier said than done. So the first problem doesn't have anything to do with the graphical user interface. It's just using a user form, in another way. We can do so many things with user forms and buttons and text boxes and labels and images. You can do so many things with it. And here's just one example. Seems like old times. Creating the video now to go through this. Create a user form. Change its name property immediately to be a descriptor. Remember, names. The name property is how VBA references this object in VBA code, and it has to have the same rules as variable names and procedure names. So you can't have any spaces. You can't have any symbols other than letters and numbers. You can have an underscore, but it shouldn't begin with an underscore. And typically what is done from programming style, it's not required, but it's good style, is to begin with 3 letters, 2 or 3 letters that are descriptive. So FRM is the common prefix for a form. TXT is the common prefix for a text box. BTN is the common prefix for a button, and so on. So before you do anything, change its name property. So as you have all these objects, you know which ones are which, especially if you're going to reference them in code, to be FRM old times, and change its caption property to be seems like old times with spaces between those. Because, and there's a little blurb here, because this is such an important topic that students sometimes don't get quickly enough. The name property is how we reference it in code, and the caption property is what the user sees, and those are different things. And getting used to using the name property and changing it, if you're going to use it, change it early, because it's better to change it early than late because of any other code you write and other reasons. So on this form you just created, add 3 buttons, and then write click event procedure code for each of those buttons to solve these 3 problems. And these are all problems that we've done in the past, right? Rectangle dimensions, write a program with 2 input values, the length and width of a rectangle. The program should calculate the area and perimeter of the rectangle. The program should then output the area and the perimeter. You can go back to the Unit 2 document, and on page 6, I think that program is discussed there. College status, write a program to specify a person's class level in college based on their hours earned. So if you've earned 95 hours, you're a senior. If you've earned 85 hours, you're a junior, and so on. You can go back to Unit 4, pages 4, and again on page 12. It's on 2 different pages. That college status program is discussed. And the third button, the high-low game, write a program that simulates the higher-lower game from The Price is Right. In this game, the player tries to guess a secret number, and after every wrong guess, the player is told the secret number is higher or lower than the guess they just made until they guess a secret number. You can go to Unit 7, pages 9 through 12. It's discussed on those 4 pages. And what you're going to create then is going to be a form. It's going to have 3 buttons. And when you click the rectangle dimension, you'll get the input box and message box combinations that will do that problem. College status, it'll get input box for hours, and it'll output box and message, freshman, junior, senior. And high-low game, you'll get input box, guess a secret number, feedback higher or lower, guess a secret number, feedback higher or lower, guess a secret number, feedback higher or lower, until you get the correct answer. Right. Sample outputs for each of these programs appears in Unit 2, Unit 4, and Unit 7 on the pages specified above. And be sure to save your work. So let's do this. This sounds maybe hard because we haven't done it before, but turns out it's not that bad, and repetition is wonderful. So we fire up Excel from scratch. We'll pull up a brand new blank sheet here. We'll go under the Developer tab and into the code window. Oops, and I got to resize this. And we're going to add a new user form. So in the Project Explorer window, we right-click and say Insert a User Form, Insert User Form, and we get this new user form control. If I'm going to change the name property, it's better to do it right off the bat. So let me go ahead and do that. And specifically, the directions tell us to change it to be FRM old times. So let's follow the directions, FRM old times. Now notice when I change FRM old times, nothing on this form changed. That is just a change to the name property, but it had an effect of, in the Project Explorer window, this went from, Unit Form 1, User Form 1 to FRM old times. So it's internally how we describe it. And any code we write will have the FRM old times, will be the way we reference the object. The caption is what the user sees. Right now the caption is User Form 1, and you see right here at the top it says User Form 1. And if I run this, even though there's nothing here, if I run this, it says User Form 1. Okay. If I change the caption to be what they tell us to change it to be, seems like old times. Seems like old times. That's what it shows up in the design mode. This is a build mode or design mode when the program's not running. And then once I select the form and click run, it actually runs, and I actually have the window, and seems like old times. The caption is visible to the user. But the name, parentheses, name property is still FRM old times. Okay, easy enough. The problem is to create 3 buttons. You can resize this to be however big or small you want it to be. In your toolbox, somewhere you have the button control. It's got the little circle with the AB around it. You can see command button. I think I made this too big. It's weird. It's not usually 2 columns. It's usually more than that, but it's showing up with 2 columns for me now. 2 rows. It's usually 3 rows. But the command button has the AB text in it. And you can just drop it in. That's the default size and text for a command button. If you go ahead and resize it maybe a little bit, if you want to change the text font a little bit, make it a bigger font, 16-point font, for example, And the caption, again, is what the user sees, and the name is the name property. I'm going to leave the name property blank right now, but I will change the caption, which is what the user sees. And we'll change the caption to be rectangle dimensions, right, 'cause that's what I want it to look like. Okay. And you need to make the font smaller or the button bigger. Either way, doesn't matter, whichever your preference is. Okay. And if I now copy this button, right click and copy, and then paste, right, it gives me the same dimensions and the same font, so that looks really good. And we'll paste one more time here. And paste it right on top of the other, but it pasted those. So now I've got button 1, button 2. You can see in the drop-down list over here, there's the form, which is named FRM Old Times, and there's command button 1, command button 2, and command button 3. And by clicking on it, I can see which one is selected. So let me change the text for command button 2. Instead of rectangle dimensions, I'm going to change the text of button 2 to be college status. Oops. I double click there. Make sure I'm changing it for button 2. Yes, it's button 2, college status. And going back to the form, click on button 3 or choose button 3 from the drop-down list. Same thing. Button 3 is highlighted. Button 3 shows up in the list. And change the caption for this to be high-low game, or whatever the text was supposed to be. Higher or lower game. Okay. Doesn't matter, but I'm going to make it match the screenshot. Okay, so what about the code for these? Well, to get to the code window, I have a couple options. I could right-click this and say View Code, and that would take me to the code window. Or I can double-click on the object, and it takes me to the default event for that object. So if I double-click on this button, it takes me to the default event for the button, which is click. Click is not the default for a text box, right? Text enter or enter, something else is the default, because you don't click very much on a text box, or that's not the main thing you associate with a text box or a label. Command button 2, which I clicked a second ago, and go back to the form, right? Command button 3. So you don't have to change the names, but you're left with this generic naming here. Command button 1, click. Command button 2, click. Command button 3. And you have to know in your mind which one of these was the high-low game. And right now, you remember command button 3 is the high-low game. But if you save this and come back to it a week from now and you were just looking at the printout without the form, you wouldn't probably remember that command button 3 was the high-low game and command button 2 was the college status and so on. So that's why we might sometimes change the names of the controls. Now watch what happens when I change the names of the controls. So command button 1, message box, hello. Okay, easy enough. That's the code for command button 1. So when I run this, click the form, so it's highlighted, run it, I click rectangle dimensions, and it says hello, right? Just exactly what you would expect. Now watch what happens here. I decide I don't like these generic names. So I'm going to change, highlight command button 1, make sure I have command button 1. I'm going to change the name of this to be BTN rectangle. Okay, so I've changed it to be BTN rectangle. Great. And when I run this program, when I select the form and run it, and I click on rectangle dimensions, I expect it to still say hello, but it doesn't. Right? What happened? Well, what happened was, if I go to my code here, I still have the hello message box hello codes there. What's happening here? Well, that message box hello is responding to the object named command button 1 being clicked. We don't have an object named command button 1. We changed it, right? Here's my list of objects. I've got an object named FRM Old Times. I've got an object named BTN Rectangle and command button 2 and command button 3. So the code that I had here doesn't work anymore. And I don't want to change this manually. What I want to do is you always want the stub to be created by the VBA editor. So I double click it to create that, or I go in the drop down list and find BTN rectangle and then the click event for BTN rectangle, right? And now I can say message box, try again, right? And on top of that, I'm going to say that command button 2, the caption for it, the back color is equal to the VB constant red. Okay. So now when I click button rectangle, it's going to say new message. Yeah. Right, not hello, but new message. And it's going to change the back color of command button 2 to be red. So I run this, select, run, I get new message, and after I OK the new message, it falls down to the next message, college status changes to red. Okay, all's good and well right with the world. Because that's a runtime option, it doesn't persist, right? Because when you restart the program, it goes back to its default, so that red doesn't stick around forever. But hello, red. Okay. Now, watch what happens when I do the same thing to college status. Command button 2 becomes BTN college. Okay, no big deal. Run the routine, click the first button, new message, and crashes. Why is it crashing? Well, it's crashing because I'm referencing command button 2 dot back color, and there is no command button 2 because we renamed it to be BTN rectangle, BTN college. So when you're stopped, click the stop button to get rid of the highlight yellow. So the point is, if you're going to change the name properties, do it early. Okay. Command button 3 becomes BTN game, high-low game. Not my best typing going on there. And in my code window, just get rid of all that code because I ideally want to change all these property names before I write any code, and then I'm in good shape. That stub is the BTN rectangle stub. That stub is the BTN college stub. This stub is the BTN high-low. It's putting these in alphabetically. The order doesn't matter, even though rectangle is my first button and college is my second button. That's my third button. They're showing up in the code editor in a different order based apparently on alphabetical. And that's fine. It doesn't matter where they exist. These lines of code, these routines exist by themselves. When I click this button, this event happens, right? When this event, click, happens to this button, rectangle, this object, then that object underscore event code happens. Okay, that was a lot, and you can see why I wanted to put this in a video and not try to write all this out into the document here. So there was a lot there. We haven't done anything yet other than build the form. So we write the code for each of these. So the rectangle code, I'll go ahead and write this one, and I'll let you just follow along in the book for the others. But the rectangle code has a variable for length. And I'm just doing this by memory. Width. This may not be exactly the way I did it in the chapter back at the time, but generically speaking, we have length and the width. Now, should these be integers or should they be double? Good question. Are you going to allow decimal places in your length or width? Is it possible to have a 5.5 thing? You might. So let's do these as double. Let's allow us to have decimal places. We also need area and perimeter. Okay. And if these are double, then these definitely are double. Okay. And the way that this works is you want to get the length from the user. So use an assignment statement, and on the left-hand side of the assignment statement is the variable it's going to update, length. And on the right-hand side, how are you going to get that value from an input box? Okay. And width the same way. A side width. Please enter the width. and it doesn't matter. The text inside quotes is exactly what the user sees. It doesn't affect the running of the program. It's just how clear do I want to be for my user. So that's input, right? Assignment statements, where you do calculations. Again, I'm going to do a calculation, so I'm going to use an equals an assignment statement to change the value of a variable. The left-hand side of the assignment statement is the variable it's going to change, area. The right-hand side of the equals is what I want it to be. Area is length times width, and likewise perimeter on an assignment statement where the left-hand side is the variable it's going to update, and the right-hand side is the value I want it to become. Length times 2 plus width times 2. Okay. So I've input some values, I've assigned some values, and now I'm going to output some values. I include a space inside the string quotes so that it is included in my, at the end, after is, and before I concatenate, I have a space, because I want it to print out when they combine together. I want there to be a space between is and the value of the variable area. Again, a space after is before they concatenate. The only other thing I'll do is I'll go up to the very top of this editing window and put option explicit, so that all the code I write in this window, all my variables have to be defined. That helps me, that doesn't hurt me. So now when I run this program, make sure the form is selected and run. I get seems like old times. I haven't written any high-low code, so it doesn't do anything. I haven't written any college status code, so it doesn't do anything. I have written rectangle dimensions code, so hopefully when I click this, it says, please enter the object width 5, please enter the object height 5, 6 is width, 5 times 6 is 30, and 5 plus 5 plus 6 plus 6 is 22. The program works. Okay, so do the same for college status. You can go back to an old the material from a previous PDF to see how to do that. Do the same for the high-low game, higher-lower game. Go back to the code from a previous unit. This is a good practice with user forms combined with reinforcement and review of things that we've done in the past, and hopefully writing the code for the rectangle dimensions, the college status, and the higher-lower game, and seeing how well you're able to write that code, how successful you are with that, will be an encouragement to you. The biggest difference is that this code doesn't exist inside of a private sub with a random name. It exists inside of a subroutine that was created by the object form editor window, where you have a drop-down list for all the objects on your user form, a user form editor window. And you have to make sure you have the object selected that you want to respond to, the BTN rectangle, and the event you want to respond to, click. That will create a stub. And it's that stub that you want your code to appear in. Okay, so let VBA create the stub for the high-low game button click, and let VBA create the stub for the college click event, and then type in the code for those things, test it, make sure it works, use option explicit at the top. Good general practice of user forms and also code review. Then your other homework assignment for this unit is I want you to design a graphical user interface, which is just, it's a fancy way of saying a user form, but it's a user form designed specifically as the user interface for a program. It's 6 hands in one hand, half dozen in the other. 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other. The science quiz is what we're looking at in this case. If you wanted to do yours on a different topic that's not science, if you want to do it based on some other pop culture reference or a sports team or something else, you could have your survey question be whatever you want it to be. But let's see how this works. What you're going to end up doing is you're going to end up creating 2 user forms, a splash user form and a questions user form. So let's do the splash user form first. The splash form, I want you to add a new user form, and let's change the name property right from the start to be FRM splash, and its caption, what the user sees across the top, to be splash page. This screenshot, I haven't changed the caption yet because it still has the old caption user form. Once you change that to splash page, this will say splash page there. Then add the following objects: a label, that's what the science quiz thing is right there, an image, that's what the image is there, and a button, and that button says button begin quiz. The label and the image will inform the user about the application, right? So it's kind of like this one. If I go back to where we were, oops, I don't know where it went. All right, here's the splash page, right? There's some text. This one actually has a label up there at the top. It's got an image, and it's even got an additional label and text, and then begin the quiz. So it's kind of like that. If I wanted to have two labels, one label for the headline and another label for more descriptive text, plus an image, right? However you want to do it. That's the beauty of what we're doing here, is we're able to, you're empowered to do whatever you want to do, right? The computer's not smart, but it does follow directions. And if you know what you want it to do, you can make it do it. So in the same program here, in the same file, I'm going to add another user form. So I've got my original old times from homework 1. Now I've got this new user form, and the first thing I'm going to do, according to my directions, is I'm going to change the name property to FRM splash. So with this new user form, I'm going to change this to FRM splash, and it changes here in the project window. And I'll change the caption. Oops, make sure I have the right one selected. Make sure I have form splash selected. And I'm going to change the caption to be splash page. Okay. And then it says to add a label. So the label object is this big large A. You get the little hint. See the hint there in yellow beneath it says label. So I'm going to add a label. I'll probably change the size and font of that. You can do bigger than 16, right? You can do a lot bigger than 16, but I'll change that. That'll be fine. Underneath the label, I'm going to have an image. The image control is kind of the landscape with the little sun in this background. So I'll add an image in here. Again, you can resize that to be whatever you want it to be. And then I'm going to have 4 buttons. Oh, I'm sorry, this is the splash page. 1 button for the begin. So let me add a button here. Font. Okay. And for these objects, if I want to change the names of those, I don't know what the directions say specifically change the names of them. It doesn't say change the names of them. This page is not going to do very much. It's just going to pop up one time and then go away. So I'm going to, if I don't have to change them, I'm going to leave this command button 1. It's the only button on this particular form, right? This form has 1 button, 1 image, 1 label, and just, I don't know, just to do different, I'm going to leave this one command button 1. And the code for this is I did change it. Okay, I changed it in the directions here. It does say to change it, so delete that code stub. Go back to command button 1. Call it btn start, btn begin. And with that new button name begin, I double click, and I get btn begin click. Even though the caption, what the user sees, is still command button 1, because I changed the name of the object, the code event for that is btn begin click. And the code for this is going to be from this page. Now I haven't changed the caption, I haven't added an image, I haven't changed the caption of the button. That's okay. You can do these in whichever order you want. But the code, regardless, when you click this button, what it's going to do is it's going to make the splash page, the one we're building right now that we haven't added the image to yet, but we're going to add an image and all that. It's going to be hidden. So the .hide makes it disappear, so the user can't see it anymore. And the form we haven't yet created, the other user form for this project, we're going to call it questions, and we're going to make it visible. Okay. So it's you've got to kind of have a little bit of an idea of what you're trying to do. btn begin, okay, dot, and notice that the pop-up code complete happens because VBA knows what btn begin is. Right? I can see it. It's the button I just created, not btn begin. I'm sorry. FRM splash. FRM splash dot. It knows what FRM splash is because it already exists here in our Project Explorer or one of the objects on one of our projects. And then I can start typing hide and does code complete. The form that I haven't yet created is form questions with an S on the end because it's plural, because there's more than one questions. I don't know. Now I'm thinking about it. Maybe it should just be question, because you're only showing one question at a time. But if you build this survey out, you'll have 10 questions or 5 questions. I don't know. Just be consistent. I'm using questions plural with an S in the PDF, so I'm going to use questions plural with an S here. And I type dot, and boom, it does not do code complete, because right now VBA doesn't know, the code does not know what FRM questions is because it doesn't exist. Old times exists, splash exists, FRM questions doesn't exist. Okay, so I can go ahead and I'll type it, but if I tried to run it right now, it would gripe. But I can type the code, but since we didn't get the code complete, that was kind of a warning to us. It's okay because we know what we're going to do. Let's add some text here, make this look a lot better. That's just real easy. I want science quiz to be my text for that, so I'll change the caption, which is what the user sees, to science quiz. And I need to go off on the internet and find an image, whatever I want to do there. So space, planet, and going to the images for that and find an image. So there we go. That's as good as any. Any one of those will work. Actually, there's some kind of fun ones there, but I'll take this one. I will copy this image or save this image. Right. Save the image down to. Got that saved. So now I have the image saved. I can add this image and change the image property over here and browse to that image. So in the picture property, the property value to the right here, click the dot 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 and browse to wherever you have it saved at. Okay. Doesn't show up here, so I can do some of the stretching properties here. Do it to there we go. And the command button caption, click to begin quiz. What do we call it? Begin quiz. So and I can also edit this way. I can click in the button and just type it here too, by the way. Notice as I'm typing here, it's updating in the caption, and as I type in the caption, it's updating in the button. So these things are closely tied one-to-one, right? The edits I make here directly show up in the button, and if I make the edits in the button, it directly shows up in the caption properties window. Okay, so there we go. We've got a little label there. We've got a button, a picture, and we've got a button for it. You could spend more time making that look a lot better, or however you wanted to. That kind of gives us the gist. And it'll run. If I select it, it'll run. It pops up. If I click begin quiz, it's going to give me an error because remember we have that line of code that we haven't written yet, form questions.show. So we have to build form questions, and then clicking the button will make the questions pop up. When you're in debug mode, click the stop button or the reset button to get rid of debug mode. And let's go in here and do the other form. Let's do the questions form. And again, I have an S, questions, even though there's really only one question at a time. In my mind, it's a survey with many questions, and we're going to use the same form over and over again for each of the questions. Add a new user form, change its name property to be form questions with an S. Change its caption, what the user sees, to be survey questions. Add controls to display a label, a picture, and then 4 buttons. Okay, so let's do that. We'll add a new form, insert a user form. There it is, insert user form. Generic name, user form 1. I want to change that to be something not generic. I want to change that to be the FRM questions. And just doing that, by making that change to where form questions exists, if I run the splash page now, I say begin quiz, form questions pops up. But doesn't have any stuff in it. We need to make this form questions have the label and the picture and the text for the 4 questions and all that stuff. So that's what we're doing now. We're editing this. The caption is survey questions. The survey questions has a label. Oops, that didn't mean to do that. What did I do there? Somehow I clicked on the splash page. I didn't mean to. I was trying to click on the controls there. So on the questions form, I created a label, and let me make that label a lot bigger. This is going to be the question text. So just as a placeholder, this is the survey question. Okay. So that's we'll change this as the program runs, but just to have an idea of what it's going to look like font size wise. Do that. We'll have a picture, kind of like we did before. And you can format that picture to be however you want it to look. And then we'll have 4 buttons. Buttons have the little A, B on it, command buttons. And I'm going to make the buttons a little bigger because I'm going to have text on the button. The answer to the question is going to be the text on the button. BTN answer 1. What are the names of these controls? BTN answer 1. I can see in the code that BTN answer 1 is what it's expecting this this code to be. So BTN answer 1, and likewise this is the first answer text. And the font size, make that bigger. Okay. And then I'm going to copy this and paste it. So this is command button 2, no, not command button 2, BTN answer 2, ANSWER. So your spelling matters, right? As you build these controls, if you have a typo in the name property, then obviously when you try to reference that in code, it won't be able to find it. So just like variable names are really important, you need your object names to be spelled correctly. And if you don't, the option explicit will tell you, hey, I don't know what that object is. Actually, it'll crash. What will happen is when you try to reference the form and it doesn't exist, or the button it doesn't exist, it'll just crash for you. So the option explicit won't necessarily help. And do the same thing, copy this one and paste it. Whew. Surprised how difficult it is to click the right option in a menu sometimes. So this is going to be BTN answer 3. And one more here. So I'm just kind of double checking on my list there. That's button 1. Click on that one. That's button 2. Yes, yes, yes. Click on this one. That's button 3. Yes, yes, yes. Copy, paste, and move this down to the end. Call this one BTN answer 4. So it's taking not a lot. It's taking some time to set this up correctly. We haven't really written any code for this form at all yet, right? If I view the code for questions, there's nothing here yet. We haven't written any code. But just setting the form up is taking a little bit of time, and it'll take you probably even more time the first time you do it because you're not quite as used to it. But the nice thing is, without writing any code, right? The it does stuff. I mean, it looks, here's my science quiz splash page. I say begin quiz. It pulls up the form, which now has stuff in it. Survey questions is the label, and this is the question, the text for the user. There's going to be an image there. It's got a button based on what the text is. I should have changed that to second, third, fourth, but this is placeholder. This is answer text, right? So it's kind of interesting, or I hope you think it's interesting. This is sample answer text. That's really what I'm saying here. And no, this doesn't matter because we're about to copy over this in our code to put the actual question text and the actual answer text into these spots. So I don't need to do this, but I didn't like that said when I looked at it, that it said first, second, first. All right, this is sample answer text, sample answer text, sample answer text. Okay. But we want to replace this to say something like, what's the example in the PDF? We want to replace it to say something like, oh, I don't have the what it looks like here. So what it's going to be, I don't have a runtime copy of that picture. I might add that to it. If I want to see the text for it, here's where the text is going to come. And sorry that I was just scrolling there while you're watching this video. I know that's maybe hard to see. But we're going to get our text, our data for our survey in this problem from the spreadsheet. So you're going to type in the spreadsheet in cell A1, what's the largest planet in our solar system? That's the question. And then the 4 answers that we're going to let the user choose are Earth, Jupiter, Saturn, the Sun. And then in cell A6, we're going to put the data that says which answer is the correct answer. In this case, Jupiter. The second of the 4 is the correct answer, right? Jupiter is the largest planet. And then we'll add a button that will open up the survey text. So let's do that. Let's go back to our spreadsheet. Okay. And this is going to be our question. And let me do a different question. What is the warmest time of year in the United States? Is it spring, summer, fall, winter? Of those 4 choices, 1, 2, 3, 4, summer is the warmest time of year in any north of the equator part of the world. So that's the survey question text. Now I've got to get this text into my code. How do I do that? I do that using code like this. When the user form is activated, I'm going to copy from range 1 into LBL question. So I do need to change the names of these controls. I already changed the name of button. And there's a variable called correct answer. See, it doesn't have a 3-letter prefix. You see how that helps the 3-letter prefixes? Because correct answer doesn't have that. I know it's not a user form control, but it's just a regular old variable. So I'm going to assign change these properties and this variable. So they're the left hand of an assignment statement. I'm going to get this data from the spreadsheet, range A1, cell, range A2, right from the spreadsheet cells. So let's do that user form activate. Now I don't type user form activate. What you do is back in the window here for the survey questions code. So make sure I have the right survey selected, right? I can go to view the code, and there's no code here currently. But I can say for, now it says user form. That's one thing that I don't necessarily like, that it doesn't change the name. It always says user form. The reason for that, actually I know why they do that, because at one point, if this was like we did the buttons where it came out whatever button I named, user form 1, and then I changed the name of the user form to be forms questions, it would devalue or disconnect the code. So they've made the decision to just use a generic user form. And the user form depends on what's selected, right? Form questions is selected. And for the user form, there's a click, but there's also an activate. So user form activate, that's the one we want. And activate occurs before the user even sees it. When you start to initialize, but before the user sees it, user form activate code happens. And what we're going to do, I'm going to delete the user form click, so we're not doing anything with user form click. And what happens in here is we can change the look and feel of our user form if we want to. So one of the things I want to do is I want to get that label. And if I try typing the code here, I'll see that I don't have the code complete. If I say LBL question equals range A1, LBL question dot, see, it doesn't pull up. I don't get the code complete. And that makes me pause and say, am I spelling that correctly? Do I have LBL question? And, I'm sorry, LBL label. No, LBL question. LBL question equals range 1. I type LBL question dot and nothing pops up. Why? Because on the questions user form, this label, I haven't changed the name. It's still generic. Remember, we changed button, 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 BTN, BTN, BTN. We changed form. We didn't do the label in the image. So let me do the label. I'll select the label control either by selecting it up here or in the drop-down list. Change this to be LBL question. Okay. And now getting back to, now that this is called LBL question, getting back to that code I was looking at, when I say LBL question dot, it pops up. Right? That's always good feedback when you see that thing pop up. The caption is going to be from the spreadsheet, whatever's in cell A1. BTN answer 1. Dot caption. Dot caption is equal to A2. Yes, typing skills are good if you're going to be doing a lot of programming, and you'll get better at typing if you end up doing a lot of programming. Although it doesn't look like it the way I'm fumbling with my typing here. And BTN answer 4. Could I do some cut, copy, and pasting? Yeah, but I would rather do it by typing these in individually and getting the confirmation of the little dot caption popping up each time. It's just good confirmation there. I know I haven't messed anything up that way. And was there anything else on the initialized code? Yeah, correct answer. Now, what is correct answer? We haven't declared correct answer. It's just a variable because I can tell it doesn't have the 3-letter prefix. At least I don't have any visual cues to think that it is. And it's going to be whatever we get from the spreadsheet, right? The number 2, because the second answer is the correct answer. But I don't have any, what is it? If I go up to the top, I see it's just a regular, it's a variable that's an integer. So there's nothing super special about that. Correct answer. Gosh, sorry. I know I just looked at it. I can't remember what it was called. Correct answer is an integer. Okay. Option explicit to make sure everything's declared. So now the only code I have for this form, the only code I have is, a variable declared, but there's the only code. When the user form activates, I'm going to get values from the spreadsheet cells. And I'm going to populate those values into the captions of the label and the 4 buttons. And I'm also going to know the correct answer. I'm not doing anything with it yet. So going back to our splash page, if I run the splash page, right, bada bing, bada boom, click quiz. And now, what's the warmest time of year in the United States? Spring, summer, fall, winter. I don't have any code for the buttons. They're not doing anything because there's no code for them yet. We have to write that code. And the image itself, we're We're not doing anything to make it pop up. I'm getting this data from the spreadsheet. So if the spreadsheet, if this text was something different, well, first, no, let's do this. This is even easier. Let me put a button control from the developer tab on the spreadsheet. From the developer tab, insert a button control. And it's going to say, hey, do you want to assign a macro to this? And I can't jump to the form activate. I can't do an event here. So I have to call the event to make the button show. If I want to give this a better name, I'm trying to see, let me see. Back in the document, the PDF document, I just left it generic button 1. So that's how I'll do it here. So let me leave this as generic button 1. New creates the stub, right? Not OK, but new creates the stub. So this code is, if you can see what's highlighted here, I'm back in the module section. So it created a new module for me, and the button 1 code is I want to say, I want to show one of these forms. Do I want to show the old times? Do I want to show the questions? Or I want to show the splash? I'm going to say FRM splash. And I get the pop-up. That's good. Show exists. Great. Okay. That's the code we see here in the PDF. Button 1 click, form splash show. And what that means is, now when I go back to the spreadsheet, when I click this, it shows science quiz. When I click this, it shows the survey question text. I still need text for those buttons to give feedback based on red and green. Did you select the right color? Did you select the wrong color? And I need, and if I were to change this text, okay, what is the best day of the week? Right. Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Run it. Science quiz. It's not really a sciencey question, but it's getting the text from the spreadsheet. What is the best day of the week? Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Right. So the question and answer text can be whatever you want it to be. And the way I have it right now is I'm choosing Monday as the best day, 1, 2, 3, 4. I probably want that to be a 1 in this case, not a 2, because I think Friday's better than the first answer is better than the second, third, or fourth answer in this case. That's what the answer text is. So I think that's enough. The only thing left to do is just to type the rest of this code that appears on page 8 and 9. When you click button 1, what happens? When you click button 2, what happens? When you click button 3, what happens? When you click button 4, what happens? Okay. So if we, in our questions form, if we go ahead and write the answer 1, answer 2, answer 3, and answer 4, click event procedure code, just copy that from the PDF. We already wrote the user form activate code. And if we go to the user form itself, view the user form, let's go ahead and put a picture here. I'm just going to use the same picture. You can use whatever picture you want. I'm just going to grab that same picture again. Oops, stretch it here. Okay. And if we go back to our spreadsheet, and if we change that text to be the text from the that I have in the PDF there, what's the largest planet in our solar system? Earth, Jupiter, Saturn, the Sun. And go ahead and change this text. Right-click this and edit the text to say begin, or begin quiz, begin survey, whatever you want to say there. So this is, I think, what our final state here. Let's just see what that looks like. So, boom, splash page pops up with the splash page label, splash page image, and the begin quiz button from the splash page. And then that pulls up, boom, survey question user form that has survey question label, text copied from the spreadsheet, 4 answers, Earth, Jupiter, Saturn, the Sun, from the spreadsheet in cells A2, A3, A4, A5. The correct answer will be highlighted in green, and incorrect answer will be highlighted in red. The correct answer is determined by the spreadsheet in cell A6. This is answer 1, 2, 3, and 4. The correct answer is Jupiter. If you click an incorrect answer, the Sun is not a planet, even though it's bigger than all those other things. It's the largest planet, so that's why the Sun is not the correct answer. Earth is not a correct answer. Between Jupiter and Saturn, Jupiter is correct and Saturn's incorrect. And this code is the code that you're writing there that's in the PDF, and you're writing that. It's all happening because of code. If you want it to behave differently, if you only want to get one guess and you get immediate right-wrong answers, you can write the code to handle it that way. If you want it to give you a pop-up every time you say something wrong that says, you can do better than that, come on, you're not trying, you can do that, right? Have a message box that says, you can do better than that, you're not trying. It's the computer does, the program does what it's told, and you're the developer deciding how you want it to behave. So we can do more than this. If I run it again and get the right answer from the start, then it shows up green. If I run it again, get the wrong answer, shows up red. I could have it as soon as you make an answer, you only get to make one guess, and then the buttons freeze. You can't change any more buttons. Right? We have lots of options there. We could have the survey question text, could say question 1 of 9. Right? But I don't want to overwhelm us. It's enough what we're doing here. This is actually a great start on doing a lot here. So that's what you're working on for this week. Great. Thank you. Have a good day.